Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking something that literally shapes the daily lives of educators and students everywhere. We're talking about transforming classroom management from, outdated punishment into a truly empowering, positive behavior framework. Whether you're a veteran teacher, just starting out, or honestly just fascinated by behavioral psychology, you're going to want to stick around for this. We're going to see how establishing clear, positive expectations through social and emotional learning can completely, and I mean absolutely completely, change the vibe and culture of a room.
All right, Section 1. Let's take a quick look back at the history of school discipline.
Just look at the sheer absurdity of these mid-1800s rules. 4 lashes for boys and girls simply playing together, 10 lashes for just vaguely misbehaving if you were a girl. It's wild. But beyond the historical humor here, this really highlights a strictly punitive, heavily reactive mindset. It was entirely based on retribution. And yeah, while we've obviously left the physical punishments in the past, thankfully, the underlying philosophy of just listing out what not to do, that has surprisingly stuck around. Sadly, far too many modern classrooms still rely on that exact same format. It's basically a modern-day list of proverbial thou shalt nots. You know the ones, the classic rules posted on a wall: don't speak out of turn, no eating, don't leave your seat. Instead of barking these negative commands, we really need to focus on how incredibly effective it is to teach actual pro-social skills. Emphasizing what students should be doing, like being respectful or being responsible, it just creates a vastly different, much healthier tone for learning.
Moving right along to Section 2, the modern positive approach.
So, the literature actually shows us something fascinating. Reacting solely with punishment after an offense occurs, that's like sailing west. But proactively teaching and reinforcing positive behavior, that's sailing east. They are completely, literally opposite directions. Think about it. If you want to stop bullying, punishing it after the fact just isn't enough. You have to actively teach the pro-social skills of respect and empathy first. It's a total paradigm shift.
And that brings us to this crucial threefold framework. This right here is how you reduce undesired behaviors before they even get a chance to start. First up, you establish clear expectations. Second, you don't just, expect students to magically know them. You directly teach those behaviors as if they were an academic subject. And third, you constantly reinforce your students when they actually display those behaviors. Doing this brings so much clarity and predictability to your classroom.
To do this effectively, though, we really have to embed SEL into our expectations. Now, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, usually just called CASEL, they define SEL as the process where young people and adults acquire the skills to develop healthy identities, manage their emotions, feel empathy, and make responsible decisions. So, by weaving this into your rules, you aren't just demanding blind compliance, right? You're actually building critical life skills.
You can actively foster this kind of social competence by bringing some guiding questions directly to your students. Ask them things like, what type of school do you actually want to be a part of? Or, how should we resolve conflicts? Giving your students a meaningful voice in their own safety and community, that is a massive game changer, especially for vulnerable students who really just need to feel seen and heard.
Okay, Section 3. Let's talk about setting clear classroom expectations.
As the saying goes, you need to know the bullseye to hit the mark. So, you've got to start by narrowing your focus. Nobody wants a list of 20 rules to memorize. You want exactly 3 to 5 broad, positively stated behavioral expectations. Seriously, no more than 5, no less than 3. That right there is the absolute sweet spot for human memory and daily application.
And hey, you should definitely have some fun with this. Use acronyms or mnemonics to make these expectations instantly stick in your students' minds. Maybe you go with the 3 Bs: be responsible, be respectful, be ready, and put bumblebees all over your room. Or you could use stars or soar. The specific words actually matter way less than the fact that they make sense to you and your students, and that they focus on positive action.
Next up, you want to take those 3 to 5 broad expectations and apply them directly to your biggest headache areas. Think about the high-frequency routines that historically just cause confusion or misbehavior. If you're in a physical classroom, maybe that's the coat cubby area or transitioning between workstations. Teaching virtually? Target the use of the chat feature in a Google Meet or those totally unmonitored peer interactions in breakout rooms. You gotta address the pain points proactively.
Moving into Section 4 now, defining behaviors for success.
So we have our broad expectations and we have our target areas, but we need to translate those broad ideas into specific, actionable steps so there's absolutely zero confusion.
To do this, you have to operationally define the behaviors. And the absolute best way to do that is to ask yourself one simple question. What exactly would my students look like and sound like if they were being successful in this specific routine? Because being responsible looks very different during silent independent test taking than it does during a messy group science lab, right? You need to define both.
Which brings us to a highly effective and honestly pretty funny trick for writing classroom rules. It's called the dead person test. Whenever you write an expectation, you really need to ask yourself, could a dead person perform this expectation exactly as stated?
Now, here's why that matters. If your rule is simply no pushing or shoving, well, a dead person can do that perfectly. They're excellent at not pushing. But that means your rule is merely a modern-day thou shalt not. You need to rewrite it to reflect an active, socially responsible behavior. So instead of no pushing, try changing it to keep your hands and feet to yourself, or move safely through the aisles. You have to actually ask for the behavior you want to see.
Let's pull all of this together into a behavior matrix. Think of this as your master blueprint. You plot your broad expectations down one side, and your most challenging routines or locations across the top. And where those intersect, that's where you write those operational definitions. Exactly what it looks and sounds like to be, say, respectful in the cafeteria. Doing this creates total, undeniable clarity for absolutely everyone.
Finally, Section 5, engaging students and creating buy-in.
A beautifully designed behavior matrix is a fantastic tool for you, sure. But let's be real, it only actually works if your students care about it and understand it. That's why student involvement is absolutely critical. Inviting students into the creation process is actually a trauma-informed approach. First, it acts as a pre-teaching exercise. They learn the rules by helping write them. Second, it massively increases their motivation and buy-in because they have real ownership. And lastly, it enhances cultural responsiveness, ensuring the rules actually respect the diverse backgrounds in your room and foster a true sense of belonging.
You can gather their input in ways that perfectly fit your teaching style and their age group too. For older kids, maybe you use pair shares or anonymous Google Forms so they can share their thoughts safely. For younger kids, have them act out skits showing the right and wrong ways to act, or take photos of them modeling the desired behaviors and post those up on the wall. Make it interactive, make it fun.
Once you've got it finalized, make sure to publicly post the expectations somewhere prominent, whether that's a giant poster on your physical wall or a graphic pinned right in your virtual classroom. Then you want to actively use what we call pre-correction procedures. That's just a fancy way of saying you briefly remind your students of the relevant expectations right before you transition into a new activity. You're setting them up for success before they even have a chance to stumble.
And, publicly posting these rules isn't just for the students. It actually serves as this constant visual cue for you, the teacher. It's a reminder to constantly reinforce the positive and, as the saying goes, catch your kids being good. Acknowledging desired behavior frequently, that is the magic ingredient that turns a boring list of rules into a lived reality.
I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to reflect on as you design your own learning space. Take a good look at your current rules. What exactly do they reveal about your classroom's community? Are they just a list of 1800s-style punishments and thou shalt nots? Or are they a roadmap for social and emotional growth? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this helps you build an incredible, positive environment.